Poor girl forced by cruel stepmom to marry cold billionaire CEO. But one night changed everything. 7 words changed everything. You will marry him or lose everything. When Elena Moretti heard those words from her stepmother, she felt her world collapse. Her freedom, her dreams, her body, all became currency in a transaction she never agreed to. A cruel exchange that would bind her to Alexander Grayson, the ice-cold billionaire whose empire was built on the ruins of his own shattered heart. Have you ever felt cornered by life with no way out? Have you watched helplessly as control over your own destiny was stripped away? Perhaps you've been forced to choose between terrible options, knowing either path leads to pain. In Brooklyn's modest streets, Elena once dreamed of carving her own path. Then her father died unexpectedly, leaving crushing debts and memories that threatened to vanish. Her stepmother Veronica, calculating and ruthless, saw only one solution: sacrificing Elena to secure their financial future. Across Manhattan, in his glass tower, Alexander Grayson ruled his business kingdom with cold precision. The man known as New York's Frost King had buried his emotions beneath layers of control after betrayal that taught him love was weakness. To him, marriage was merely another business arrangement, until Elena walked into his life. No one expected what would happen when desperation collided with detachment, when a woman with nothing to lose faced a man who refused to feel, when one unexpected night of passion cracked the foundation of everything they thought they knew. Welcome to the Soul Thread family. I'm Mr. T, and if stories of impossible choices and unexpected transformations resonate with you, hit subscribe now and join our Soul Thread family. Turn on notifications so you never miss a moment when characters like Elena discover their hidden strength. This journey from powerlessness to reclaiming one's story is just beginning, and believe me, what follows will change how you think about power, love, and the courage to defy expectations. Elena Moretti grew up in a modest apartment in Brooklyn, where the city's persistent hum served as a soundtrack to her childhood. Her father, Marco, worked double shifts as a restaurant manager to provide for them after her mother's early death. Despite limited means, their home overflowed with laughter, books, and dreams. "You have fire in your soul, my little lioness," her father would say. "Never let anyone extinguish that flame." Elena cherished those words, clutching them close as she worked her way through community college, balancing classes with part-time jobs. Her dream? To open a community center for women seeking education and opportunity, a place where others like her could find the tools to forge their own destinies. Then came the phone call that fractured her world. Marco Moretti found collapsed in the restaurant kitchen, his heart giving out without warning. At 23, Elena found herself standing beside a fresh grave, inheritance consisting only of memories and mountains of hidden debt. Your father was not the financial wizard he pretended to be, Veronica revealed with cold precision 2 weeks after the funeral. Her stepmother of 5 years slid bank statements across the kitchen table. The house is mortgaged beyond value. His medical bills remain unpaid. Collectors will take everything. Elena hadn't seen the trap closing around her until it was too late. Veronica had been calculating, watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Alexander Grayson needs a wife to soften his public image, Veronica continued, examining her manicured nails. His board of directors believes a marriage will humanize him, make clients more comfortable. I've arranged a meeting. "I won't be sold like property," Elena whispered, voice trembling with rage and fear. Veronica's smile never reached her eyes. "You misunderstand. This isn't a request. Marry Grayson, and his lawyers handle your father's debts. Refuse, and you lose this apartment, your father's possessions, everything. Even that pathetic community-centered dream dies today." For 3 sleepless nights, Elena paced her childhood bedroom. Each path before her led to some form of captivity. Marriage to a stranger, a cold, ruthless businessman, meant sacrificing her autonomy. Refusing meant watching her father's legacy vanish while drowning in debt she could never repay. On the 4th morning, Elena stood before her mirror, eyes hollow from exhaustion but chin raised in defiance. She made her choice not with submission, but with strategy. If this was to be her prison, she would find the weaknesses in its walls. If Alexander Grayson wanted a wife, he would get one, but not the docile, broken creature Veronica expected to deliver. "I'll do it," Elena told her stepmother later that day. "But remember this moment, Veronica. You haven't destroyed me. You've only shown me exactly what I'm capable of surviving." Alexander Grayson commanded respect across Manhattan's financial district. From his glass fortress atop Grayson Innovations Tower, he built an empire that transformed industries. At 35, his name appeared on every significant business ranking. Youngest CEO to reach $1 billion, most influential tech innovator, wealthiest bachelor in New York. The media called him the Frost King, not because he failed, but because he never seemed to feel. Board meetings ended with executives shivering from his calculated precision. Rivals learned quickly that Alexander's mind worked 10 steps ahead, analyzing weaknesses with machine-like efficiency. Few knew the truth behind the ice. 8 years earlier, Alexander had been different, ambitious still, but capable of warmth. Then came Victoria Blackwell, his fiancée and vice president of operations. Their relationship had been the talk of corporate America, proof that power couples could thrive in cutthroat industries, until he discovered her downloading confidential files at midnight. Victoria hadn't just betrayed his heart. She'd sold proprietary technology to his largest competitor, nearly destroying everything he'd built. The scandal was contained, but Alexander's trust shattered beyond repair. Emotions or liabilities became his mantra. Sentiment clouds judgment. When Grayson Innovations faced acquisition threats, his board suggested a strategy: soften his public image through marriage. A calculated relationship with the right woman could humanize him to investors while creating stability for nervous shareholders. "Your bachelor lifestyle projects volatility," his PR director explained. "Marriage suggests commitment, longevity, qualities our clients value." Alexander dismissed the idea until Veronica Moretti approached with an intriguing proposition. Her stepdaughter needed financial security. He needed image rehabilitation. A clean exchange of assets that required no emotional investment. "Efficient," was his only comment before approving the arrangement. Elena arrived at Grayson Tower on a Wednesday afternoon. Alexander expected submission, perhaps gratitude. Instead, she entered his office with quiet dignity, wearing a simple blue dress rather than the designer outfit Veronica had purchased. "Mr. Grayson?" She nodded coolly, declining his assistant's offer of refreshment. "The contracts are prepared," he stated, gesturing the documents on his desk. "Your financial obligations will transfer to my legal team upon signing." Elena's eyes, deep brown and unexpectedly fierce, locked with his. "Let's be clear. This arrangement saves my father's legacy, nothing more. I won't pretend affection where none exists." Alexander felt something unfamiliar, a flicker of respect, perhaps curiosity. No one spoke to him with such directness anymore. "Honesty is efficient," he replied. "But understand this. In public, we present unity. Behind closed doors, maintain whatever distance you prefer." "Perfect," Elena answered, signing her name with steady hands. "Because I have no interest in getting close to someone who treats people like commodities." As she left, Alexander found himself watching her departure, puzzled by the woman who, despite having nothing, refused to appear conquered. The Plaza Hotel transformed into a wonderland of crystal, white roses, and champagne fountains. New York's elite gathered to witness the romance between Alexander Grayson and his bride, a fairy tale wedding crafted by publicists rather than love. Photographers captured every moment. The custom Vera Wang gown, the 7-tier cake, the string quartet, each detail carefully orchestrated to project the perfect union. "They look magnificent together," guests whispered, oblivious to the emptiness behind Elena's practiced smile. Alexander played his role flawlessly, the successful CEO who had finally found his match. His hand rested on Elena's waist during their first dance, his touch formal, distant. To onlookers, they appeared captivating. Only Elena felt the chill radiating from his body, the careful calculation in each step. "Remember to look happy," he murmured near her ear. "The board chairman is watching." After the spectacle came reality. Alexander's penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of a gleaming midtown high-rise, 60 stories above the city, yet completely removed from life. Minimalist furniture in shades of gray and white. Floor-to-ceiling windows offering panoramic views no one ever stopped to admire. Art worth millions adorned walls that had never known laughter. Elena's belongings, books, photographs, her father's chess set, looked out of place among the pristine surfaces. When she arranged them in her bedroom, separate from Alexander's per their agreement, his housekeeper quietly removed them to storage. "The decorator established a specific aesthetic," the woman explained. "Mr. Grayson prefers consistency. Days blended into weeks of silent meals and separate lives." Alexander departed at 5:30 each morning, returning after 9 each night. Occasionally, they attended functions together, charity galas, business dinners, where they performed the role of newlyweds with mechanical precision. Elena tried at first. "Perhaps we could have dinner together on Sundays," she suggested one evening, catching Alexander in the rare moment between work and sleep. His response was polite but distant. "I review quarterly projections on Sundays." Eventually, she stopped trying. The penthouse became her gilded cage, luxurious, cold, and isolating. Her stepmother visited occasionally, examining Elena's designer clothes and jewelry with calculating eyes. "You should be grateful," Veronica reminded her. "Many women would kill for your position." But position wasn't happiness. As winter settled over Manhattan, Elena found herself standing at those massive windows, watching snowflakes swirl against the glass, feeling just as adrift. "Is this all there is?" she whispered to her reflection. "A lifetime of pretending? We all wear masks sometimes, don't we? Have you ever found yourself trapped in a situation where you had pretend everything was fine when your heart was breaking? Maybe you've experienced an arranged relationship, family pressure, cultural expectations, or financial necessity pushing you toward someone. Share your story in the comments below. How did you handle living with someone who felt like a stranger? Did you find ways to build connection? Or did you create separate lives under one roof? Your experiences might help others feeling just as alone as Elena right now. And for Elena, this isolation was about to crack in ways neither she nor Alexander could have anticipated. 3 months into their marriage of convenience, Elena woke at midnight to the sound of breaking glass. Following the noise to Alexander's study, she found him standing amid shattered crystal, a photograph clutched in his hand. His composure, that impenetrable mask he showed the world, had vanished, replaced by raw anguish he never intended anyone to witness. Elena's instinct was to retreat. This wasn't her battle. His pain wasn't her burden. Yet something in his expression, the naked vulnerability of a man accustomed to control, kept her rooted in the doorway. "I can come back later," she offered quietly. Alexander's head snapped up, eyes widening at the intrusion. For a breathless moment, Elena thought he might order her away. Instead, his shoulders slumped, defenses momentarily abandoned. "Today would have been my father's 70th birthday," he said, voice rough with emotion. "He never saw what I built. He died believing I would fail." The confession hung between them, unexpected, unplanned, and strangely honest. Elena stepped carefully across the room, avoiding glass shards. Without asking permission, she took the photograph from his hand, a stern-faced man standing beside a younger Alexander at graduation. "My father died believing in me," she said softly. "But sometimes I wonder which is worse, disappointing them or never knowing if he could have made them proud." Alexander studied her face, seeing beyond the arranged wife to the person beneath. "You talk about him often. Your father." "He was my anchor," Elena admitted. "When my mother died, he became everything: parent, friend, cheerleader. Mine was the opposite, Alexander replied, surprising himself with this continued honesty. Nothing satisfied him. Every achievement came with criticism about what could have been better. They cleaned the broken glass together, CEO and reluctant bride on their knees, collecting fragments. When Alexander accidentally cut his palm, Elena bandaged it without comment, her touch clinical yet gentle. Victoria destroyed my company's future, he said suddenly, watching Elena's careful ministrations. But worse, she made me question every interaction, every relationship. Trust became impossible. Elena paused, meeting his gaze. Veronica convinced my father to change his will before he died. She knew about his heart condition, but kept it from me. By the time I realized something was wrong, it was too late for treatment. Alexander's expression shifted. We've both been betrayed by people who should have protected us. Yes, Elena nodded. But the difference is what we've done with that pain. You built walls. I'm still looking for doors. They talked until dawn about grief, ambition, and the weight of expectations. Not as husband and wife, but as two wounded souls recognizing familiar scars in each other. When morning light streamed through the windows, something had shifted between them. Not romance, not yet trust, but recognition. As Alexander left for work, he paused at the door. Thank you, he said simply, for seeing the broken glass. Elena watched him go, wondering perhaps they were both more than the roles they'd been forced to play, and if underneath the ice existed possibilities neither had dared imagine. Just as the frost between Elena and Alexander began to thaw, a shadow from the past emerged in Valentino's stilettos and a calculated smile. Victoria Blackwell returned to Manhattan's social scene with impeccable timing, right as Alexander's company prepared to launch its most ambitious project yet. Alexander, darling, she cooed at a tech industry gala, approaching the couple with practiced grace. Marriage looks good on you, though I must say, your bride wasn't quite what I expected. Her gaze swept over Elena with barely concealed disdain, assessing and dismissing in a single glance. Alexander's posture stiffened, his hand instinctively moving to Elena's lower back, a protective gesture neither expected. Victoria, he acknowledged coldly, I thought you were still in Europe after the settlement. Her laugh tinkled like broken glass. Business brings me home. Speaking of which, I had lunch with the Wall Street Journal yesterday. They're so interested in your unique marriage arrangement. The threat materialized 3 days later, splashed across business pages and gossip columns alike. Grayson's golden deal. Billionaire buys bride to boost stock prices. Photos of Elena entering the Grayson Industries building. Time-stamped details of meetings between Alexander and Veronica before the wedding. Financial records suggesting payments disguised as consulting fees. Each headline cut deeper than the last. Elena's phone buzzed constantly with notifications from people she barely knew, offering false sympathy while probing for confirmation. At charity events, conversations hushed when she approached, resuming with doubled intensity after she passed. Gold digger, they whispered. Desperate social climber. Alexander faced his own scrutiny. Investors questioned his judgment. Board members expressed concerns about company image. Through it all, his face remained impassive, though Elena noticed a tightening around his eyes, the tension in his jaw when another article appeared. Veronica arrived unannounced at the penthouse one afternoon, bearing coffee and false concern. I warned you this might happen, she told Elena, examining the spectacular view as if assessing its value. Alexander's world was never meant for someone like you. Someone like me? Elena challenged. Common, Veronica clarified. Smile never reaching her eyes. These people detect authenticity like sharks sense blood. They're circling now. How long before Alexander realizes your liability? She placed a folder on the glass coffee table. Divorce papers. Already drafted. When he inevitably asks you to leave, sign these immediately. I've negotiated a reasonable settlement. Enough to clear your father's debts and provide a modest apartment. Don't get greedy. Elena's hands trembled as Veronica departed, leaving behind both papers and poison, the carefully constructed life she'd been building. Not just a marriage, but her growing understanding with Alexander suddenly seemed fragile as a soap bubble, ready to burst at the slightest touch. The Metropolitan Museum's annual charity gala transformed its marble halls into a wonderland of champagne fountains and candlelight. New York's elite gathered in their finery, but tonight Alexander and Elena Grayson commanded attention for reasons beyond the usual gossip. They arrived as a united front, Elena in a deep crimson gown that made her skin glow like porcelain, Alexander in a tailored tuxedo that emphasized his imposing frame. Their entrance silenced the room momentarily, curious eyes assessing whether the scandal had broken them. "Ready?" Alexander murmured, his hand at the small of her back. Elena nodded, chin lifted in quiet defiance. Let them watch. Throughout the evening, something electric sparked between them. Perhaps it was a shared battle against Victoria's smear campaign, or the subtle ways Alexander positioned himself between Elena and prying questions. When they danced, his hand gripped hers more firmly than necessary, as if anchoring them both against a current of whispers. "They're watching us," Elena whispered against his shoulder. "Let them," he replied, echoing her earlier defiance. His eyes, normally guarded, held something new, admiration, perhaps, for her resilience. Later, as donors mingled over dessert, Victoria approached with calculated precision, trailing investors behind her. "Alexander, darling, people are asking such interesting questions about your arrangement with Ms. Moretti." Before he could respond, Elena stepped forward. "Mrs. Grayson," she corrected smoothly, "and our arrangement is quite simple. Victoria, love found where least expected tends to burn the brightest." She reached for Alexander's hand, and without hesitation, he laced his fingers through hers. The ride home hummed with unspoken tension. Words failed as the elevator ascended to their penthouse. When the doors opened, Alexander turned to her, question in his eyes, restraint in his posture. "Why did you defend us?" he asked, voice rough with emotion. "After everything, the scandal, the humiliation, why stand with me?" Elena's answer came not in words, but in closing the distance between them. Their first true kiss ignited like a match to paper, tentative at first, then consuming. Walls constructed over years crumbled in minutes as they discovered each other not as business partners, but as man and woman, wounded, wanting, and suddenly brave. That night transformed their carefully separated lives into something real. Passion replaced protocol. Vulnerability overcame caution. In darkness, they found honesty neither had permitted in daylight. Whispered confessions, gentle touches, and promises neither had dared to make before. Dawn brought retreat. Elena woke to an empty bed and Alexander already gone, leaving only a note. "I have meetings. We'll talk later." But later stretched into days of carefully maintained distance. Alexander worked later, spoke less, rebuilt the walls their passion had demolished. The memory of their night together hung between them, powerful enough to change everything, yet too fragile to acknowledge. Elena watched it withdraw and made her decision. If one night could shake his fortress so deeply that he fled for his own emotions, then perhaps she possessed strength she hadn't recognized. No longer would she wait for others to determine her fate. "If you need space," she told his absent form, gathering her resolve like armor, "then I'll use that space to become someone even you can't ignore." Elena stood in an abandoned warehouse in Brooklyn, rainwater dripping through ceiling cracks and pigeons roosting in broken windows. Where others saw decay, she envisioned possibility. With the signature on her marriage contract came access to a trust fund, money she had never touched, considering it payment for her freedom. Now, she would use it differently. "This will be the classroom," she explained to the contractor, pointing to a sunlit corner. "And here a computer lab. Women need tools to rebuild their lives." Within weeks, Aurora Rising began taking shape, a nonprofit dedicated to providing education, counseling, and career training to women escaping difficult circumstances. Elena poured every ounce of her intelligence and determination into creating what she had always dreamed of. The work filled her with purpose beyond the empty glamour of being Mrs. Grayson. "You've found your calling," observed her first volunteer, watching Elena counsel a young mother returning to school. "This place radiates hope." As Aurora Rising gained recognition, Veronica emerged like a storm cloud on Elena's horizon. First came concerned calls to donors, suggesting financial irregularities. Then whispered rumors about Elena's qualifications and motives. When these failed, Veronica appealed directly to Alexander. "Your wife is damaging the Grayson name," she insisted during an unexpected office visit. "Associating with these women from questionable backgrounds reflects poorly on your company." But Veronica had miscalculated. The Elena who cowered under threats no longer existed. This Elena stood before community leaders, advocating fiercely for women society had discarded. This Elena managed budgets, wrote grants, and created opportunities where none had existed. This Elena couldn't be silenced, not by Veronica, not by society's expectations, not even by her own fears. What would you do if someone tried to steal your purpose? If the path to your dreams required standing up to those who once controlled you, would you retreat to safety, or would you fight for the life you deserve? Share your thoughts in the comments below. How would you handle being in Elena's position, torn between a marriage of convenience and the calling of your heart? The Archer Gallery's modern exhibition space, all clean lines and dramatic lighting, provided neutral ground for the conversation Elena and Alexander could no longer avoid. He requested a meeting through his assistant, choosing a private showing after hours where neither could retreat behind social masks. Elena arrived first, studying a large abstract canvas, bold strokes of red cutting through field of gray, when Alexander's reflection appeared beside hers in the polished floor. "Your nonprofit is impressive," he said without preamble. "I visited yesterday." Elena turned, surprised. "You came to Aurora Rising?" "I watched you teaching that computer class." His voice held newfound respect. "Those women look at you like you've handed them the keys to a locked door." "Everyone deserves a chance to write their own story," she replied. "Including me." Alexander moved closer, his customary reserve cracking. "I've been afraid," he admitted. "That night at the gala, what happened between us, it wasn't part of our arrangement." "Because it was real," Elena said quietly. "And real things can't be controlled by contracts. Victoria taught me that vulnerability leads to destruction. Then you came along, forced into my life against your will, yet somehow stronger and more honest than anyone I've known." Elena met his gaze directly. "I'm not Victoria, and you're not Veronica. We're not defined by those who betrayed us." Their conversation lasted hours, moving from painting to painting as they dismantled the walls between them. Alexander revealed his fear that genuine connection would compromise his judgment. Elena confessed her terror that dependence meant surrender. Together, they recognized how their past wounds had shaped their present choices. When Alexander's phone buzzed with reports of Veronica's latest attempt to undermine Aurora Rising, allegations about misused funds sent to major donors, his response was immediate and decisive. "My legal team will handle Veronica," he stated, eyes flashing with protective determination. "And I'll personally speak with each donor." Elena shook her head. "I don't need rescuing, Alexander. I need partnership." His smile, rare and genuine, transformed his face. "Partnership, then. Your vision, my resources. Your heart, my strategy. Equal voices in all decisions." 2 days later, Victoria arrived at Grayson Industries for what she believed would be a private meeting with Alexander. Instead, she found both Graysons waiting, united and resolute. "Your campaign against my wife ends today," Alexander informed her coldly. "Continue, and every non-disclosure agreement you sign becomes enforceable." When Veronica appeared at Aurora Rising's fundraiser, intending to create a scene, Elena met her with calm confidence, while Alexander stood supportively nearby. "You can't control me anymore," Elena told her stepmother. "We've outgrown your shadows, both of us." Their journey toward authentic connection wasn't seamless. Years of defensive habits wouldn't disappear overnight. But with each challenge faced together, their arranged marriage evolved into something neither had believed possible. A genuine partnership built on mutual respect, shared purpose, and gradually blossoming love. 1 year later, Elena and Alexander stood together at Aurora Rising's expanded headquarters, a renovated Brooklyn brownstone where dozens of women now received education, support, and opportunity. What began as Elena's dream had grown into their shared mission. Their marriage, once a cold business transaction, had transformed into something neither could have imagined that first day in his office. Alexander's public persona still commanded respect in boardrooms, but those closest to him witnessed a change. How his eyes softened when Elena entered a room, how genuine laughter replaced calculated responses. Elena flourished both as Aurora Rising's director and as herself, no longer defined by others' expectations or past wounds. The woman who once felt powerless now spoke at conferences, mentored other nonprofits, and stood confidently beside her husband as an equal. Our greatest strength, Elena often told her students, comes not from avoiding pain, but from refusing to let it dictate our future. Together, they prove that even relationships built on a wrong foundation can transform when two people choose growth over fear, honesty over convenience, and partnership over power. From a forced marriage to a genuine love story, their journey reminds us that circumstances may determine where we begin, but courage determines where we finish. No one can claim your worth unless you surrender it. No past betrayal can predict your future unless you allow it. If Elena and Alexander's story touched something in your heart today, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to remember their own power. Subscribe to Soul Thread Stories for more journeys of transformation, betrayal, and unexpected love. The most beautiful stories often begin in the darkest moments, and I'll be here every week to remind you that your story, like Elena's, is still being written.